Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show where we take a stack of incredible source material, unpack complex ideas, and, well, we extract the most important nuggets of knowledge or insight, all custom-tailored for you, our listener.
That's right.
Today, we're embarking on really an exciting journey, one that challenges our very definition of success and happiness. What if being rich isn't just about the zeros in your bank account, but, a complete state of being, personally, spiritually, and financially?
And what if the path to that kind of profound richness was laid out in a program? A program so clear, so actionable, it could quite literally change your entire life.
That's precisely what we're exploring today. We're taking a deep dive into a really profound guide on prosperity and happiness, one that stretches far, far beyond the typical financial advice you usually hear.
Exactly. Our source material today is Napoleon Hill's seminal work, Your Right to Be Rich, Napoleon Hill's proven program for prosperity and happiness, originally published way back in 1961.
Wow, 1961.
Yeah. And this isn't just like a regular book. It's actually a series of powerful lectures. Lectures from a man widely recognized for, well, motivating more people to achieve success than probably anyone else in history.
That's quite a claim. But yeah, Napoleon Hill, a huge name. So our mission with this deep dive is to take you on an exciting journey through Hill's core philosophy. We're focusing specifically on the foundational principles, right from the introduction all the way through to principle number 17. We're going to uncover how to achieve, really, your every goal and dream, recognizing that true riches encompass all aspects of life, not just money.
Right. We'll kick things off by understanding what Hill actually means by this holistic view of true riches.
Yeah.
And we'll look at the fundamental human motivations that, well, drive all of us.
Okay.
Then we'll systematically explore the cornerstone principles. And they're packed with some surprising insights and real-world applications that you can actually start putting into action immediately.
Fantastic. Okay, let's unpack this. #tag understanding true riches and fundamental human motivations.
So, right off the bat, Hill challenges a really common misconception about wealth.
Okay.
He argues that true riches aren't just narrowly restricted to, fortune and fame. Actually, his own observations showed him that the individuals who only got the financial rewards, they were often the least happy, the least satisfied people.
That's counterintuitive, isn't it?
It really is, and it forces us to think bigger. Why would Hill stress this holistic balance right from the very start of his whole philosophy?
Yeah, it feels foundational. He's basically telling us it's all about sustainable satisfaction, right? His core idea is that to be genuinely rich, truly rich, you have to be rich in all areas of life, personally, spiritually, financially.
Exactly.
And he's not just saying these things exist side by side. He sees them as intricately interwoven, like a tapestry. And if one thread is missing or maybe just weak, the whole fabric of your life's richness is, well, compromised. It really highlights that success isn't just about piling stuff up, but about the quality of your overall existence.
Precisely. So he lays this groundwork for a philosophy that really prioritizes enduring fulfillment over just, temporary material gain. That really sets the tone for everything else that follows. Real prosperity is comprehensive. It's a state of being, not just a number on a bank statement.
Got it. And when it comes to what actually drives us, our motivations, Hill gets into what he calls the 9 basic dynamic forces of humanity, our fundamental motives.
Right.
He explains that understanding these forces, and they include both positive and some seemingly negative aspects of human nature, is absolutely essential if you want to work with them to achieve the riches you desire.
So what are they?
Well, the list includes the emotion of sex, the desire for material gain, the desire for self-preservation, the desire for freedom of body and mind, the desire for self-expression and recognition, the desire for life after death, and then, interestingly, the desire for revenge and the emotion of fear.
Okay, wow. So the inclusion of revenge and fear alongside things like freedom and self-expression, that's striking.
It really is.
It definitely raises a critical question. How does Hill suggest we actually engage with these, let's say, negative forces, rather than just trying to bottle them up or suppress them? How do we use them for constructive outcomes?
Yeah, that's such a profound insight he offers. He acknowledges these aren't just, abstract ideas. They're deeply ingrained, potent powers within us driving our actions. He isn't telling us to ignore or deny our fear, or even, surprisingly, a desire for revenge. Instead, he's saying, look, if we grasp their inherent dynamic power, we can actually learn to transmute that energy.
Transmute, like change its form.
Exactly. Think about it. Instead of letting fear totally paralyze you, maybe it can fuel like meticulous preparation and really careful planning.
Okay, I see.
Or instead of letting a desire for revenge just fester and become destructive, maybe you can redirect it. Turn it into this intense, burning drive to prove yourself, to achieve success way beyond what anyone who doubted you ever imagined, simply by showing what you can accomplish.
So it's about redirecting that powerful emotional energy, turning it into something positive, something constructive.
Precisely. Working with our nature, not against it.
So with that holistic view of richness and human motivation locked in, Hill gives us the very first absolutely foundational step, definite of purpose. He calls it the starting point of all achievement.
Okay, principle number 1.
Right. And he defines a definite purpose as something that absolutely must be accompanied by a definite plan for reaching that objective and then followed by appropriate action.
Action is key.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just have a goal. It needs to be crystal clear, backed by a concrete strategy, and then crucially acted upon.
That emphasis on action is so critical. Hill points out, interestingly, that the plan itself doesn't have to be like perfect right out of the gate.
No, not at all.
You can, and often you probably should, modify it as you go if it's not giving you the results you want. What's absolutely paramount is the definiteness of your purpose, your objective. There can be zero ifs, ands, or buts about what you're aiming for. And the real value of this whole philosophy, Hill says, comes from you forming your own patterns, putting it to work every day in your life, your business, your job, your relationships. It's not passive. It demands active application.
Indeed. And Hill emphasizes that all individual achievements ultimately stem from a motive, or maybe a combination of motives, which circles right back to what we were just talking about, those human dynamic forces.
Right.
Now, a key aspect here is how this purpose actually gets impressed onto your subconscious mind. Hill gives very specific instructions. You must write it out, you have to memorize it, and you need to repeat it day in and day out, over and over, until your subconscious mind just internalizes it and automatically starts acting on it.
And he's very clear, this isn't an overnight thing.
Right.
It takes time, especially, he says, to dismantle years of ingrained negative thinking patterns that most of us have. But he gives us a critical accelerant, emotionalizing the plan, repeating it not just like a robot, but with real enthusiasm, with deep faith. That makes the subconscious respond much faster, much more positively. He really stresses that belief alone, well, it's dead without action. Your subconscious, he explains, can absorb self-faith, but only if you feed it that message consistently, persistently.
And this leads to a really powerful reflection on self-confidence, because Hill makes a pretty startling claim here. He observes that somewhere between 98 and 100% of people, almost everyone, never develops enough self-confidence to genuinely go after their desires.
Wow, 98 to 100%, that's staggering.
It is. They just end up accepting whatever life happens to hand them. It suggests that nearly everyone is selling themselves short simply due to a lack of real, deep-seated self-belief.
That's a serious reality check.
It really is. And if a plan isn't working out, Hill doesn't say just keep banging your head against the wall. He advises dismissing it and actively seeking guidance from what he calls infinite intelligence.
Infinite intelligence.
Right.
Like a higher power. Or the universe.
He leaves it somewhat open, but yeah, a universal source of wisdom. And he reassures us we can ensure we get this guidance by genuinely believing we'll receive it. He even suggests expressing this belief enthusiastically out loud. He says that actually stirs up belief and stimulates the subconscious mind.
He illustrates this perfectly with that legendary anecdote about the title for Think and Grow Rich.
Oh yeah, the use your noodle story.
Exactly. The working title was The 13 Steps to Riches, which, let's be honest, isn't exactly catchy.
Not quite $1 million title, as he put it.
Right. And his publisher is getting antsy, even jokingly threatened to call it Use Your Noodle and Get the Boodle if Hill didn't deliver something better by morning.
Huh. Imagine.
So Hill, feeling the pressure, sits on his bed and has this loud, clear talk with his subconscious. He literally demands $1 million title that very night. He describes reaching this physiological moment, this feeling where he just knew the power of faith had taken over and he could finally relax. And true to his conviction, at 2 a.m., he wakes up. Think and Grow Rich is just there, clear as day in his mind. And that book, of course, became a global phenomenon, grossed millions, potentially over $100 million eventually.
That anecdote just perfectly captures it all, doesn't it? The definite purpose, the command to the subconscious, the applied faith. And what's fascinating is Hill describing that precise feeling of certainty before the answer actually appeared.
Yeah, it wasn't just wishing.
No,
Yeah.
it was this deep, unwavering conviction that the answer was coming. And that conviction, that faith, allowed the subconscious to do its work and deliver.
It's like mental alchemy. Hill also gives us really practical steps for applying this definiteness of purpose. He says that having a definite purpose forces you to budget your time effectively. He suggests analyzing how much time you genuinely waste versus those 3 fundamental 8-hour blocks: sleep, work, and your personal free time. And most people, he observes, would get the shock of their life if they really saw their own inefficiency mapped out.
He illustrates this further with his own huge turning point, the Carnegie Challenge.
Right, the 20-year mission.
Exactly. Andrew Carnegie tasks Hill with organizing the world's first practical philosophy of individual achievement, a monumental undertaking demanding 20 years of his life with no compensation.
Unbelievable. And Hill's response?
Immediate, unwavering. Yes, Mr. Carnegie, you can depend upon me, sir, that I will complete it.
Wow. No hesitation.
None. And Carnegie later revealed he was specifically waiting for that kind of determined reply. If Hill had hesitated, even slightly, said something like, well, I'll do my best, Carnegie would have instantly withdrawn the offer.
So determination was the key.
Absolutely. At that moment, Hill had basically no tangible assets, just pure, absolute determination. And the connection for you, the listener, is really clear. Hill assures you that you possess that exact same capacity, the capacity to define what you want and be utterly determined to achieve it, even if you don't know the very first step yet.
That deep determination extends to commanding your subconscious mind. Hill tells us, give your subconscious a clear, unambiguous idea of what you want. Command it. Let it know you're the boss.
Yeah.
He repeats that staggering observation. 98% of people don't truly know what they want, and because of that, they never get it.
So to help with this, Hill lays out several key strategies for your definite major purpose. First, and this one might surprise people, he says keep it private.
Private. Really? We usually think sharing goals helps accountability.
Right. But Hill advises not disclosing your major purpose, especially to what he calls idle, curious people. People who might harbor envy, consciously or unconsciously, and end up sabotaging your efforts, throwing monkey wrenches or sand in your gearbox, as he puts it.
Interesting. So why is privacy so crucial here?
Well, Hill believes it shields your purpose from external negativity. Doubt, criticism, envy, all of these things can weaken your resolve, dilute the mental energy you're focusing. Keeping it private allows your conviction to really solidify without that outside interference. Let your actions do the talking, he says, after the fact, not before. Real boasting is through deeds, not words.
Okay, that makes sense. Protect the seed until it sprouts. What else?
He also advises, make your plan flexible. Don't get married to your initial strategy. Give it a fair trial, sure. But if it's clearly not working, change it without hesitation. The definiteness is in the purpose, the end goal, not necessarily locked into one rigid path to get there.
Adaptability. Got it.
Next, you need to engage your conscious mind frequently. Hill suggests bringing your major purpose into your conscious awareness constantly. Eat with it, sleep with it, take it everywhere you go. This active focus influences your subconscious even while you're sleeping. Your conscious mind acts like a gatekeeper for the subconscious, he explains, mostly letting in either your fears or your strong enthusiasms.
And then you actively put your subconscious to work at night. Right before bed, give your subconscious a clear, specific order for the night. Maybe it's physical healing. Maybe it's solving a complex problem. It will then collaborate with infinite intelligence while you sleep.
But he adds a warning.
Be careful what you ask for.
Exactly, because you're going to get it. He observes that most of us have probably been asking for everything we don't want, just through neglect, by not clearly defining and commanding what we do desire.
Wow. Okay, fifth strategy.
Fifth, include your life purpose. Your definite major purpose shouldn't just be a short-term goal, it should be your greatest purpose in life. The single aim you desire above all else, the legacy whose fruits you'll leave as a monument to yourself. It can incorporate lesser aims like your job or career, written out like a detailed personal platform.
Aim high.
Absolutely. And finally, engage the full power of your mind. Aim high. Don't measure your future by your past mistakes or limitations. A new day is coming. You are a new person. Hill genuinely aimed for his students to experience a kind of rebirth, mentally, physically, spiritually awakening to their own inherent power and dignity.
He also places huge importance on harmonious relationships as a critical plank in your major purpose platform.
Yes, paramount. He stresses that perfect harmony with your spouse or partner is absolutely vital, calls it the most important human relationship. Your spouse, he says, should be your first mastermind ally.
He even playfully suggests you might need to court him or her over again.
Right. Describing it as potentially a wonderful experience, rekindling that connection on a deeper level.
That's a lovely perspective, treating marriage like a powerful alliance. And he extends this idea to business relationships too, right?
He does. He advises rededicating yourself to building better relationships with colleagues. He thinks a little confession, admitting your own imperfections, can work wonders. Ultimately, he stresses, your major goal is achievable largely through the willing cooperation of others.
How do you get that cooperation?
By genuinely cultivating people, understanding them, making allowances for their weaknesses, and, importantly, focusing on their virtues. Criticizing people or constantly harping on their faults, he warns, just pushes them away, build them up.
Makes sense. And what about overcoming obstacles when you're pursuing this big, definite purpose?
He says, don't hesitate to choose a major aim that seems, right now, totally out of reach. He points to his own experience, that 20-year period of seemingly unproductive research for his philosophy. What sustained him? Unwavering faith and acting as if he already knew he would complete it, even when facing constant criticism, his mantra. You can't fail unless you think you can.
And he wraps this principle up beautifully by pointing to nature operating with purpose.
Yes, a universal illustration. The laws of nature, gravity, the cosmos, the predictable paths of stars and planets, they are definite, unwavering, precise. Astronomers can predict movements centuries ahead because of this inherent order.
So that's nature's demonstration of definiteness.
Exactly. He says we must learn to align ourselves with these natural laws to use them effectively, rather than being sort of buffeted around by neglecting them. It's about bringing our personal efforts into sync with that universal order. #, the mastermind principle, tapping collective power.
Okay, so from that individual focus on definite purpose, we now expand outwards to the collective through what Hill famously calls the mastermind principle.
That's right. And a foundational premise here is simply that tapping into other people creates entirely new possibilities. Hill defines the mastermind principle as the medium, the channel, through which you can access the full benefits of other people's experience, their training, education, specialized knowledge, and even their influence, just as completely as if their minds were, in reality, one zone.
Wow, one zone. That's a powerful image. It basically means whatever you lack in yourself, skills, knowledge, connections you can get through someone else.
Precisely. Hill believed the exchange of favors and knowledge is one of the greatest exchanges possible, much more valuable, he thought, than just exchanging money.
He shares his own early experience with this, right? His first mastermind alliance.
Yes, his initial trio consisted of Andrew Carnegie, his own stepmother, and himself. This small group, he explains, essentially nursed this philosophy through its early, vulnerable stages, especially when pretty much everyone else was laughing at him for dedicating 20 years to it without pay.
So that alliance was crucial for overcoming opposition.
Absolutely critical. Hill observes that whenever you aim for something significant, something beyond the mediocre, you will face opposition and criticism, often, sadly, from those closest to you.
Yeah, that happened.
A mastermind alliance provides that vital source to recharge your batteries, to keep you going when you feel like quitting. Hill himself said he became absolutely immune to criticism, whether it was friendly or unfriendly, specifically because of his mastermind allegiance. He admitted he had at least 1 million opportunities to quit.
1 million.
But his stepmother's unwavering belief, constantly telling him, you are going to be the richest member of the Hill family, sustained him. And she didn't just mean money. She meant the broader riches of service and impact.
That leads to a really critical element he stresses. Harmony is key.
Essential. Absolutely essential. Hill hammers this point home. Perfect harmony is critical within a mastermind alliance. Without it, he says, it's just ordinary cooperation or maybe friendly coordination, but it's not a true mastermind. Harmony, he believed, grants you access to the spiritual powers of the other members, enhancing collective intuition and synergy, like a mental and spiritual amplification.
Which reinforces the idea that the sum is greater than its parts.
Exactly. Hill states it's a proven record. All individual successes above the level of mediocre are achieved through the mastermind principle, not just by individual effort alone. He gives examples like outstanding dentists, lawyers, doctors who effectively turn their satisfied clients into enthusiastic salesmen for them simply by consistently going the extra mile and offering truly exceptional service.
He also provides a major historical example, FDR's Depression recovery.
Yes, a very compelling one. During the Great Depression, public confidence had completely collapsed. Banks were shutting down everywhere. Hill actually worked with Roosevelt to sketch out a basic propaganda plan, using the media positively, that dramatically shifted headlines away from business depression and towards business recovery.
Wow, so how did the mastermind principle apply there?
Hill called it an outstanding application of the mastermind. Essentially, everyone, newspapers, radio stations, churches of all denominations, pulled together behind the president, their powerful shared motive, self-survival. That unity, forged by the mastermind principle in a time of crisis, allowed them to collectively overcome immense fear and literally pull the nation back from the brink.
Incredible. What about the different types of mastermind alliances?
Hill details two main types. First, there are social or personal alliances. These involve family, friends, maybe religious advisors, places where material gain isn't the main goal. And the most important of these, he insists, is the one between a husband and wife. He strongly urges married couples to consciously rededicate that marriage to a mastermind alliance for, he promises, immense joy, success, and even better health.
That's powerful advice for couples. And the second type?
Then, naturally, there are business or professional alliances. These are formed primarily for material or financial advancement. Hill notes most people will probably form their first alliances for this purpose, and he sees that as perfectly legitimate.
Okay, so how do you actually form an alliance?
Hill suggests starting small, maybe with just one other person you trust and respect, then collaboratively select others. And here's a crucial point. The existing members must always be in complete agreement, in harmony with any new selections to maintain that essential positive energy.
And it's about leadership, not domination, right?
Absolutely. One person usually emerges as the leader or coordinator, but they should never dominate the group. Domination, Hill warns, inevitably breeds resistance and breaks the harmony. A true mastermind must embody a continuous spirit of perfect harmony, moving and acting almost as if it were one single unified mind.
What about the qualities you should look for in members?
Hill outlines several key qualities which he actually considers vital for all human relationships. At the very top of his list, dependability.
Dependability first, before ability.
Yes, he states flatly that a brilliant but undependable person is inherently dangerous, especially in business. After dependability comes loyalty. If someone is disloyal, he argues, they lack fundamental character. Only after those two comes ability to do the job.
Interesting hierarchy. What else?
A positive mental attitude is crucial. A negative wet blanket is detrimental. Hill even jokes it's often better to pay them to just stay away. Also important are a willingness to go the extra mile and possessing applied faith.
Okay, and once you have the group, how do you maintain the alliance?
You need structure and commitment. Establish a definite plan for how members will contribute, and set up regular meetings at a definite time and place. Indefiniteness, he warns again, leads to defeat.
Makes sense.
And just like friendships can wither from neglect, so can mastermind alliances. Constant contact is vital. Even something as simple as sending a postcard, he suggests, can keep that connection alive and active. It requires ongoing effort. #, applied faith and its elements.
Okay, moving on, let's explore applied faith. This is another big one, and Hill sees it as deeply connected to the principles we've just discussed.
Very much so. He views it as foundational, linking directly to definiteness of purpose, positive mental attitude, and the mastermind alliance. Think of it this way. Your purpose is supported by your initiative and action,
Right.
and your positive mental attitude determines how effective your faith actually is. He even goes so far as to say that prayers only bring positive results when they're expressed with absolute faith and a positive mental attitude.
So if you can't mentally see what you're asking for is already yours, the prayer might backfire.
That's what he suggests. The feeling, the conviction behind it can be more powerful than the words themselves. It's quite a remarkable assertion.
Definitely. So what are the core elements of this applied faith?
Hill breaks it down. First, a core belief. Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent benefit. Temporary defeat is not failure until it has been accepted as such.
Okay, that's a famous one, the seed of equivalent benefit.
Exactly. And he explains that most people really stumble here. They get moody, they feel defeated, instead of actively searching for that hidden benefit, that seed.
He uses his own life as an example, doesn't he?
Powerfully so. He describes losing his mother when he was just 9 years old as, paradoxically, his greatest blessing. Why? Because it brought him a new mother, his stepmother, who he credits as being directly responsible for everything he achieved later in life.
Wow.
Without her influence, he suggests, he'd likely still be back in the Virginia mountains, fighting rattlesnakes, drinking mountain liquor, and fighting feuds. His own 20 major adversities, he claims, ultimately proved the soundness of this philosophy.
So he challenges us.
He does. Look closely at your own adversities, he insists. They are often, he believes, your greatest blessings in disguise. You genuinely cannot fail, he repeats, unless you think you can fail. It's about perspective and searching for the opportunity within the challenge.
Okay, what's the second element?
Applied faith requires the consistent habit of affirming one's definite major purpose daily. Think of it as a prayer or a mental command you give yourself regularly.
Like programming the subconscious.
Exactly. Hill emphasizes that the subconscious mind only processes what you consciously feed it, or what you allow others or circumstances to feed it. It doesn't know the difference between truth and lies, or between a penny and $1 million.
So be careful what you feed it.
Absolutely. If you consistently send it predominant thoughts of poverty, ill health, or failure, that is precisely what it will work to manifest in your life. Your mind, he says, is like an electromagnet. Once you charge it with a clear, vivid picture of what you desire, it will automatically start attracting the resources, people, and circumstances you need from the highways and byways of life.
And the third element?
The third is the recognition of infinite intelligence. Hill urges us to acknowledge some kind of infinite intelligence that gives order to the entire universe. Think of it like a vast underlying wisdom or operating system. You, he says, are a minute expression of this intelligence. And because of that connection, your mind has no limitations except those you consciously accept or impose upon yourself. He points to figures like Edison, Ford, Carnegie, and even himself as living proof that this potential is boundless.
Hill's own self-belief really shines through here.
It does. He states he never wavered in his belief during that entire 20-year journey with Carnegie, even while admitting he didn't possess exceptional brilliancy or outstanding intelligence. His belief, he insists, was his strongest asset. Applied faith means throwing yourself on the side of yourself, backing yourself, especially when you're hit by adversity or facing opposition. He also observed that great achievers were great in proportion to the number of defeats they had endured and the opposition they had overcome. He wasn't afraid to share his own defeats publicly, specifically so others would believe, look, if Hill can do it, I can do it too.
That's inspiring. And he connects this infinite intelligence to a sort of proof of God.
He does. He presents evidence for a first cause, or God, not through complex theology, but through the inherent observable orderliness of the universe itself. From the predictable behavior of electrons to the grand orbits of suns and galaxies, he sees this meticulous order as the most compelling evidence. If you fail to recognize this underlying order, he argues, you won't recognize your own profound connection to infinite intelligence. Your limitations, he concludes again, are ultimately self-imposed or accepted based on your circumstances and thinking. # going the extra mile, a fundamental trait and principle.
Okay, let's talk about one of Napoleon Hill's most widely known principles.
Yeah.
Going the extra mile. The core idea seems simple, but feels incredibly powerful.
It is. It simply encourages you to consistently do more and deliver better service than what you are explicitly paid or expected to do.
But the attitude matters, right?
Absolutely paramount. Hill emphasizes that if you gripe or complain about going the extra mile, it just won't bring the positive returns. He urges us to look at nature's example. Every living thing, he reminds us, instinctively goes the extra mile just to survive and thrive. Think of a farmer. They intuitively know you have to invest more than the bare minimum to get a truly bountiful harvest.
So it operates under a specific law.
Yes, the law of increasing returns. This means you will always inevitably receive back more than you give out. Whether your actions are positive or negative, it comes back greatly multiplied in kind, though he notes it might not always be immediate, but he warns negative influences also return amplified.
And there's also the law of compensation. How does that differ?
He clarifies that compensation doesn't always come directly from the person or source you served. So don't be afraid, he says, to offer great service even to people you might perceive as greedy. If you do it in good faith, with the right spirit, you will be compensated. Why? Because it's impossible for the universe not to deliver on this law.
Interesting. So the universe balances the books eventually.
Essentially, yes. And this practice, he argues, provides significant internal benefits too. It builds greater courage within you, helps you overcome inhibitions and feelings of inferiority.
And here's where it gets really fascinating. Hill suggests that genuinely helping others, especially when you yourself feel stuck, isn't just about good karma.
Right. He posits it can literally rewire your brain chemistry towards positivity. And even more remarkably, it can somehow unlock the solution to your own problem.
Seriously. So helping someone else could be the key to my own breakthrough.
That's the idea. Imagine the answer you've been searching for might just appear when you shift your focus to helping someone else with their challenge. It unlocks something in you, he says, allowing infinite intelligence to provide your solution.
Wow. Okay, so where should someone start with this?
Hill suggests beginning right at home, with your spouse or partner. He talks about going on a new sparking spree, rekindling romance, showing extra appreciation. He says it can alleviate friction, even cut down on household expenses, and calls it a fine place to start.
That's sweet. And then?
Then he advises engaging in at least one conscious act of going the extra mile every single day. It could be small, calling an acquaintance just to wish them well, helping a neighbor with something. He wisely reminds us that both successes and failures are ultimately built from countless little things.
He shares an example of his associate, Mr. Stone, right?
Yes, a great illustration. Mr. Stone consistently goes the extra mile in his dealings, and as a direct result, countless people naturally go the extra mile for him. Hill notes some people would even happily pay him a salary just to work for him, because the association itself is so positive and uplifting. Stone doesn't worry about being taken advantage of. He's learned to adapt and finds immense joy in living and connecting with people.
So for a practical application, say in your job.
Hill advises doing a little more than you're paid for. Stay a little later to finish a task really well. Actively look for ways to make someone else's day a little happier or easier. He promises that this consistent effort will lead to recognition, promotions, or raises, often without you even needing to ask. The law of compensation will inevitably take care of it. ## key traits for success. Hill then dives into a whole collection of key traits. These are qualities he saw as profoundly contributing to success, often grouping them under attributes like personal initiative or having a pleasing personality. And the important thing is, these are actionable qualities that you, the listener, can consciously work on developing.
Okay, so what are some of these key traits?
One vital trait he highlights is flexibility. He defines this as the ability to bend and adjust to different circumstances without breaking under the pressure.
The opposite of being rigid.
Exactly. He contrasts this with many people who are too staid, too set in their ways and mental attitudes to adapt to unpleasant things. This often leads to unnecessary stress and frustration for them.
He uses FDR as an example here, doesn't he?
Yes, he suggests Franklin D. Roosevelt was immensely popular, partly because he could be all things to all people, skillfully adjusting to their mental attitude without getting upset himself. He contrasts this with presidents like Hoover, Coolidge, and Wilson, whom he characterizes as inflexible, static, rigid, and who ultimately struggled to truly connect with the American people.
So flexibility isn't just about survival. It's about connection and well-being.
Precisely. It's a direct path to peace of mind and good health. And he assures us, even if you don't feel very flexible right now, you absolutely can cultivate it.
What's another important trait?
A pleasing tone of voice. He observes that a harsh, nasal, or monotonous tone tends to irritate people. Public speakers, especially, need to master their pitch and tone.
How do you develop that?
He says you have to practice, obviously, but fundamentally you need to feel pleasing on the inside first. You can't effectively project a pleasant tone if you're secretly feeling angry or resentful. But the payoff, he assures us, for being perceived as pleasing is immense.
Makes sense. What about tolerance?
Tolerance is huge for Hill. He defines it as maintaining an open mind on all subjects, towards all people, at all times. Your mind isn't closed off against anyone or anything. You're perpetually willing to listen and learn more.
That sounds rare.
He thought so too. He believed genuinely open minds are rare, and a closed mind simply cannot maintain a pleasant mental attitude. Prejudices, he warns, naturally cause people to back away from you.
How did he practice this himself?
He gives his own approach as an example. He said he got along with people of all religions, races, and creeds because he consciously chose to see them simply as fellow beings, brothers and sisters. He focused on their efforts towards self-improvement, not their political or religious labels.
That's a great perspective. He mentions a motto, too.
Yes. He fondly recalls Dr. Frank Crane's motto, "Don't take yourself too damn seriously." And he clarifies that damned here means damning yourself by taking yourself too seriously. It's about maintaining perspective and a bit of humility.
Good advice. What other traits?
Another critical one is frankness, but not bluntness. It refers to a deliberate control of the tongue, the discipline of thinking before you speak.
Think before speaking. Easier said than done sometimes.
Isn't it? He notes most people speak impulsively and regret it later. He suggests a simple filter. Pause and consider if what you're about to say will genuinely benefit or potentially harm the listener or yourself. This simple check, he promises, will stop you from saying half the things you later wish you hadn't. It's not about brutal honesty that loses friends, but avoiding evasiveness or double talk, which, he notes, nobody really likes.
Okay. What about appearance?
He talks about a pleasing facial expression. A smile, he says simply, is far more effective than a frown. A perpetually serious expression tends to make others feel uncomfortable and fidgety.
But it has to be genuine.
Absolutely. Don't just grin, he jokes. Monkeys can grin. Smile because you feel it. The genuine smile, he insists, starts in your heart. He points to FDR's famous $1 million smile, noting how even trivial things he said sounded like wisdom and music, partly because his smile had such a positive psychological impact.
Interesting. He also touches on fairness and justice, right?
He does, and presents a bit of a challenge here. He observes that many individuals are fair and honest only when it's directly profitable for them. He thought that percentage was much too high.
And sincerity of purpose.
That means being genuine in your words and deeds. Not trying to be something you're not or saying things you don't truly mean. Lacking sincerity, he says bluntly, is first cousin to lying.
Then there's tact.
Yes, tact. Controlling your speech so you don't just blurt out every fleeting thought. You don't have to voice everything that crosses your mind, he warns. He brings up Andrew Carnegie again as a prime example. Carnegie never gave direct orders. He always asked employees if they would mind doing something or if it would be convenient.
Even as the boss.
Even as the boss. That approach made him incredibly successful in human relations. Hill advises applying this politeness even when you are in a position of authority. It's simply more effective.
Okay. What about decision-making?
Promptness of decision is vital. He advises making decisions promptly and firmly once all the available facts are gathered. But, and this is a crucial addition, don't be too stubborn to reverse a wrong decision. Be fair to yourself and others. Some people, he observes wryly, would rather die than reverse themselves, clinging to a mistake instead of admitting error.
Good point. He also lists faith in infinite intelligence again here.
Yes, as a key trait. But he emphasizes it's about more than lip service. Many people talk about faith but fail to act on it. Hill contends an ounce of a good act is worth 1,000,000 tons of good intentions or belief.
Actions speak louder.
Definitely. Then there's the appropriate use of words. Choosing words free from slang, wisecracks, profanity, and double talk. He stresses mastering the language to convey exactly what's in your mind. Wisecracks might seem clever to the speaker, he notes, but they rarely land well with the listener.
And perhaps one of the most liberating traits. Don't take anything too seriously.
Yes. He also lists this as failure #15. He urges us not to let loss or defeat utterly destroy us. He shares that deeply personal story again about the Depression. 4 of his friends committed suicide after losing their fortunes. Hill himself lost twice as much money as they did.
Wow. But his attitude?
Profoundly different. He said, "It's a blessed fine thing because losing this amount of money, now I'll have to start in and earn some more, and in earning some more, I'll learn some more."
Incredible resilience.
He described himself as being like a cork. You just naturally bounce back up no matter how many times you're pushed down. The key is to constantly, actively seek the seed of improvement within every single setback.
Love that. He also strongly advocates for accepting friendly criticism.
Yes, actively inviting it. He calls it a finest thing to have a regular, trusted source of feedback on your actions, especially things you might be doing unintentionally that offend or miscommunicate. Resisting even constructive criticism, he warns, significantly stunts your personal growth, and you should never expect 100% approval from anyone anyway.
That's realistic, and loyalty comes up again.
Yes, also listed as failure, #28. For Hill, loyalty to those to whom loyalty is due was his absolute top qualification for associating with people. He repeats that a brilliant but disloyal person is inherently dangerous to any team or relationship.
Okay, what else? Observation of details.
Crucial. Hill stresses that both successes and failures are ultimately built upon little details that most people overlook. He recounts that compelling experiment where a teacher took a class past 10 stores. The students, even with notepads, noted at most 56 items. The teacher, without notes, accurately listed 746 items observed.
Wow, that's incredible observation.
It is. Hill says a truly effective executive or leader observes all the things happening around them, not just what immediately interests them, but everything that might potentially affect their broader interests or goals.
And finally, concentration.
Yes. developing the capacity to concentrate your full attention on one subject at a time. Hill actually considered being called one-track-minded a compliment. He believed minds trying to be multi-track often fail to do a good job on any single thing. Successful people, he observed, have cultivated a high capacity to keep their minds fixed intently on one objective until it's achieved.
He mentions getting help with his own concentration.
He does. He shares how a friend's honest, free criticism was invaluable in helping him overcome his own weakness of going off on tangents during public speaking. It taught him the discipline to stick to the main point. And just to round out this powerful section on traits, he brings up the golden rule again. Apply it in all human relationships. Before making any decision or engaging in any transaction involving others, Hill advises consciously put yourself in the other fellow's position to ensure genuine fairness and equity. Okay, let's move to principle #7, which is positive mental attitude, or PMA. Hill declares this is one of the most important principles. He even calls it the formula to best assimilate and apply his entire philosophy.
The formula. So you can't really get the most out of the other 16 without this one.
That's exactly his point. You simply cannot derive the full benefit from the others without actively cultivating a robust, positive mental attitude.
So how do we get there? He outlined some steps, right? 5 precursors.
Yes, 5 crucial precursors to achieving this powerful state of PMA. First, we all start with wishes. Everyone has them, but Hill notes that merely wishing rarely leads to anything significant happening.
Just wishing isn't enough.
Right. Then there's idle curiosity. This can eat up a lot of time, like obsessively studying your neighbors or competitors without actually fostering a positive mental attitude.
Okay,
Third, your hopes must transform into a burning desire. This isn't just a casual want, it's an intensified, almost obsessional desire. And it needs to be intensely fueled by a clear motive. The more motives driving it, he suggests, the quicker this transformation happens.
But even a burning desire isn't the peak.
Not quite. Fourth, that burning desire needs to step up even higher, into applied faith. And what's the key difference here? Applied faith, Hill explains, is active faith. It's faith that is consistently backed by tangible action.
Faith plus action, applied faith.
Exactly. And the 5th step, naturally, is action itself, that final, indispensable component. He observes that effective prayers, the kind that get results, are only articulated by minds that are habitually conditioned to think in terms of a positive mental attitude.
This really highlights the profound power of positive thinking.
Immensely so. Hill challenges us directly. Take a stark self-inventory. How much time do you genuinely spend thinking negatively versus positively each day? He suggests that even highly successful people would probably be astounded if they honestly tracked it, realizing how many hours they spend steeped in negative thought patterns.
Whereas great leaders,
by stark contrast, spend almost no time dwelling on the negative side of things.
And how does this apply to problem solving?
Most people, when faced with a problem, instinctively focus on all the reasons why it cannot be solved. But Hill insists that every single problem inherently possesses a favorable side, an opportunity. If you can solve it, he says, do it. If you can't, he advises, don't waste energy worrying about it.
That relates back to prayer, too, doesn't it? He mentioned prayer sometimes bringing negative results.
Yes, precisely because of this principle. He argues prayer often yields negative results because, by universal natural law, your mind attracts to you the counterpart of the things that the mind is feeding upon.
Like attracts like.
Exactly. There are absolutely no exceptions to this law, he insists. So, to attract what you desire, your mind must be predominantly positive. Applied faith simply cannot exist or function effectively in a negative mental state.
Okay, so how do we actually go about conditioning our minds for positivity? It sounds like hard work.
Hill says you don't get PMA just by wishing for it. You have to actively build it. He uses the analogy. You weave rope, a cord at a time, day by day, little by little. It's a deliberate, gradual process, a habit you painstakingly build over time.
He shares his own experience with this.
He does. He says he consciously conditions his mind to think only of what he can acquire, not what he lacks or can't have. This consistent discipline, he states, eventually led him to a point where he genuinely had no money worries and, remarkably, no worries at all.
Wow. No worries at all. That's a state to aspire to. He also introduces a really fascinating personal system he developed, his helpful invisible guides.
Yes, this is quite unique. He describes actively creating in your imagination an army of invisible guides, designed to attend to his various needs and desires. He's very upfront that they are a creation of my own imagination, but he says for all practical purposes, they function in his mental world as if they were real entities.
Like mental archetypes or allies.
Kind of. His first guide, for instance, is his guide for physical sound health. He places this first because, as he puts it, a strong, healthy body is the essential temple of the mind. You simply can't express genuine enthusiasm if your body's burdened with aches and pains.
Makes sense. What other guides did he have?
He cultivated a guide to peace of mind. And he asks a really poignant question. What good is it if you owned everything in the world, if you didn't have peace of mind? He observed that among the richest men he knew intimately in America, only perhaps John Burroughs and Thomas Edison even vaguely approached true peace of mind. Carnegie, he notes, almost lost his sanity trying to effectively give away his immense fortune.
So true wealth includes peace of mind.
For Hill, it was essential. True wealth lies in a balanced life and actively cultivating peace of mind along the journey. He also maintained guides of hope and faith, which he saw as inseparable twins, absolutely essential for imbuing life with meaning and purpose.
So these guides were basically a system.
Exactly. A meticulously crafted personal system designed to keep his mind predominantly positive. They acted as a crucial resistance against the destroyers of hope and faith, whether those destroyers were negative people or challenging circumstances. And because they were his creation, he says, these mental constructs were entirely manipulable by him.
How did he use them when facing difficult situations?
When confronting unpleasant circumstances, he observed that if you fear them, they seem to crowd down on you in flocks. Hill, by contrast, didn't invite them, but if they came his way, he would make grist of them. He simply refused to go down under them, using his mental framework to maintain control.
What did he see as the main obstacles to positive thinking?
He outlined several, both internal and external negatives. First is the persistent tendency of the negative self, that inner critic or pull towards negativity that constantly maneuvers for power over you, demanding unwavering vigilance.
We all know that one.
Right. Second, accumulated fears, doubts, and self-imposed limitations. These must be continually addressed, otherwise they'll dominate your mental landscapes.
Okay. External obstacles.
Third, negative influences and people, especially those in your close circle family, colleagues. He warns you can become just as negative as those around you if you're not careful. But the good news is, he assures us, you can immunize yourself against their negativity, citing Mahatma Gandhi as an example.
Interesting. What else?
Fourth, worry over the lack of money or progress. This common worry can either consume you, or it can be transmuted into actively working out solutions by deliberately focusing on the positive side of the situation. Worrying itself, he insists, only deepens the problem. Fifth, unrequited love or emotional frustrations. He strongly advises not letting these destroy your mental balance, as sadly happens to so many people. Your primary duty, he stresses again and again, is to yourself. Maintain your positive mental attitude and refuse to allow anyone or anything to throw you off equilibrium.
And sixth,
unsound health, whether it's real or imagined. Hypochondria, he notes, can generate immense worry and genuinely impact physical well-being. Your mental attitude, he stresses, profoundly impacts your physical health. Think about it. Good news can sometimes instantly lift an illness.
True. He sums this up with his 12 pillars of peace of mind, right?
Yes, a powerful summary they are. 1. Positive mental attitude. 2. Sound physical health. 3. Harmony in human relations. 4. Freedom from fear. 5. Hope of future achievement. 6. Applied faith. 7. Willingness to share one's blessings. 8. To be engaged in a labor of love. 9. An open mind on all subjects, tolerance toward all people. 10. Complete self-discipline. 11. The wisdom with which to understand people. And finally, number 12, money.
Okay, this leads perfectly into principle, #8, self-discipline. And Hill gives this a really specific and profound meaning, doesn't he?
He does. For Hill, self-discipline means taking absolute possession of your own mind. That's the core of it. This, he states unequivocally, is the only thing over which you have complete, unchallenged control. And if you control your thoughts, he argues, you inherently control your deeds, your actions.
He emphasizes the power of laughter and resilience here, too, with that personal poem or mantra.
Yes, it's incredibly powerful and captures his philosophy beautifully. He recites parts of it. Life, you can't subdue me because I refuse to take your discipline too seriously. When you try to hurt me, I laugh, and the laughter knows no pain.
No.
The mantra goes on to outline actively transforming defeat into a triumphant song, skillfully dodging life's traps, intentionally choosing new friends, and always possessing the fundamental power to think my own thoughts and to be myself. He even frames death as just a peaceful sleep and speaks of constantly rekindling hope, his ultimate declaration to life itself. Life, you are licked.
That's not just being stoic, is it? It's more active than that.
Much more active. It's about actively choosing your mental response and then using self-discipline to override those default negative reactions we all have. The proactive nature of laughing off adversity demonstrates a profound internal mastery. It allows you to rebound from almost anything.
He contrasts this with the wealthy people he knew who lacked balance and peace.
Yes, he observed that many of his immensely wealthy collaborators often lacked true peace of mind. Why? Because their singular focus, almost worship, of wealth led them to neglect other absolutely vital aspects of life. He describes an extremely rich person with only monetary riches as the most pitiful sight in the world.
Ouch.
He then contrasts this sharply with his own state. He says, I am very rich today, not just financially, but because he has cultivated a balanced mind, free from grudges, worries, or fears, all achieved through diligent, consistent self-discipline. He lives in peace with all people, races, creeds, and simply refuses to allow petty things like racial differences to provoke anger within him.
So a core practice of self-discipline is maintaining a focused mind.
Absolutely. It enables you to keep your mind firmly fixed on what you want and actively steer it away from what you don't want. Hill says this practice alone can feel like a new birth because it stops your mind from constantly dwelling on miseries, disappointments, or people who might try to injure you.
How do you do that practically?
Keep your mind perpetually busy, he advises. Busy with the things you desire, the actions you want to take, the people you genuinely like and admire. This leaves literally no mental space, no time for dwelling on things or individuals you dislike. Starve the negatives, feed the positives.
He also challenges us to use self-discipline to find good in others, even people we instinctively dislike.
Yes, this is a tough one, but powerful. He states that a weak person looks for faults in others to justify their dislike, but a strong person uses self-discipline to actively seek out the good, even in those they dislike. There is nobody so bad in this world, he insists, that he doesn't also have some good in him.
That requires effort.
It does. He contrasts how easy it is to criticize others with the difficulty of honest self-examination. It's astounding, he notes, how many faults you suddenly perceive in others when you stop introspectively examining your own. He concludes with that timeless wisdom. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. When you diligently clean your own house, he suggests, other people's houses often appear cleaner as well.
He suggests an exercise for self-improvement through self-analysis.
Yes, a practical one. Make a list of 5 personality traits you personally need to improve through self-discipline. He playfully suggests asking your spouse if you're stuck. Then, he says, make a list of traits others need to improve. Notice how startlingly easy that second list is to generate in comparison.
Good point. He talks about dishonesty, too.
Yes. The worst form of dishonesty, he argues, is creating alibis in your own mind to rationalize and justify your own actions. Be brutally honest with yourself first. Actively work to bridge your weaknesses, or use the mastermind principle and list allies to help you where you're weak.
Hill calls thought control the most important form of self-discipline, right?
Paramount. Absolutely paramount. You will never truly master external circumstances or your place in the world, he asserts flatly, until you first master your own mind. This internal mastery allows you to consciously choose your mental battleground, your weapons. You condition yourself not to destroy or injure others unless you are genuinely defending your rights. With this empowered, self-controlled attitude, he claims, you essentially achieve victory before you even begin the external battle.
And keep focusing on what you want.
Consistently. Occupy your mind with the things you do want. Vividly see yourself in mental possession of them. Unless you first achieve that mental possession, he argues, you will rarely achieve physical possession, unless by sheer luck or accident.
What's the ultimate reward for this mastery?
The ultimate reward for taking full possession of your own mind, he says, is the mastery of your own destiny. It grants you direct contact with infinite intelligence. You will be guided. Hill often referred to feeling an invisible force looking over my shoulder, constantly guiding him through obstacles and challenges.
This leads to a powerful idea of personal sovereignty.
Yes, you, and only you, determine what you truly want. Do not, he warns sternly, let others dictate your desires. Hill considered allowing others to dictate his wants an insult to his creator, because he believed the creator intended for him to have the final say about himself.
And this ties into the law of reciprocity again.
It does, that universal law of reciprocity. Whatever you do to or for another person, you do to or for yourself. It is, he states, an eternal, unbreakable law. He illustrates this poignantly with his own lawyer brother who specialized in divorce suits. Because of his narrow professional focus, the brother concluded all women were bad and, tragically, never married himself. It shows how judging all others solely by one's limited experiences can create a deeply distorted and self-limiting reality.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, let's get into principle #11, accurate thinking. He'll suggest this is key to penetrating life's deepest secrets.
Yes, and he argues it's absolutely essential for any kind of enduring success. It involves understanding fundamentals, the crucial ability to distinguish facts from fiction, and, most critically, the discipline of doing your own thinking.
Doing your own thinking. Seems obvious, but maybe it isn't.
Hill insists, permit no one to do your thinking for you. Think about it. Everything significant starts with an idea, a thought. If that underlying thought is flawed, based on bad information or faulty reasoning, the final outcome will inevitably be flawed too. Becoming an accurate thinker, he cautions, isn't easy, but it is absolutely essential.
He has a great line about most people thinking they think.
Right. He astutely points out that most people do not think, they just think that they think. Our opinions and decisions, he observes, are far too often based on fleeting desires, emotional feelings, or biases, rather than on hard, verifiable facts. And when your head and your heart clash, he notes, the heart usually wins out, whether it's logical or not.
He outlines 3 basic forms of thinking.
Yes, to help clarify. First, inductive reasoning. This is based on assumed or unknown facts or hypotheses. You essentially create the facts in your mind and then base your judgment on them. This approach, he warns, requires extreme caution and a constant readiness to change your conclusions as real facts emerge.
Okay.
Second, deductive reasoning. This is supposedly based on known facts, or what are believed to be known facts. This, he says, is what most people claim to engage in, but often they do it poorly without verifying the known facts.
And
third is logic, which he simplifies as just being guided by past similar experiences, learning from what has happened before in similar situations.
So what are the crucial steps to actually doing accurate thinking?
Hill identifies 2 main steps. The first is absolutely fundamental. Separate fact from fiction or hearsay. Before you even begin to think about something, you must rigorously determine if you are dealing with verifiable facts or just speculation, opinion, or rumor. And he warns, be extra careful with hearsay. It's notoriously unreliable.
Okay, separate fact from fiction, step 2.
Step 2 is to distinguish important facts from unimportant facts.
Filtering.
Exactly. And this is a huge pitfall. Most people, Hill observes, spend far more time and mental energy dwelling on irrelevant facts, like engaging in gossip, worrying about things they can't control, meddling in others' affairs, than on focusing on facts that would genuinely benefit them personally or help them achieve their goals.
He suggests a self-inventory here, too.
Yes. Try it for just one day. Take an inventory of the facts you process, think about, talk about. You'll likely be surprised, maybe even shocked, by how few of them are truly important or constructive for your own life and purpose.
That's a challenging exercise. What about accurate thinking regarding advice?
He offers some very direct insights here. First, free advice, volunteered by friends and acquaintances, is usually not worthy of consideration.
Harsh. Why?
Because, he argues, it's rarely grounded in verifiable facts. It's usually mixed up with small talk, personal biases, maybe even hidden agendas. It is, he asserts bluntly, generally worth what it costs nothing.
So where should you get advice?
The best advice, he argues, comes from a qualified specialist in the relevant field. And you should expect and be willing to pay for that expertise.
He shares that story about Elmer, the student who wouldn't listen.
Yes, a perfect illustration. A friend named Elmer, who is also his student. Hill gave Elmer free counsel for 3 solid years. But Elmer, as Hill put it, didn't hear a single word of it. His business wasn't doing well.
So what changed?
Elmer finally paid a substantial sum for one of Hill's master courses. And suddenly, his business affairs began to thrive dramatically. Why? Because, as Hill observed, once he had skin in the game, he commenced listening to it and putting it into action.
So you value what you invest in.
Precisely. It connects to Hill's belief that you only truly obtain things like love and friendship by giving them first. If you just try to mooch off others, your supply will inevitably run out. You need to contribute value to receive value.
Ultimately, accurate thinkers consistently do their own thinking.
That's the bedrock. Hill stated that his proudest personal asset was his ability to think for himself, completely uninfluenced by others, by prevailing circumstances, or by media narratives. He even poetically believed that angels in heaven sing out whenever someone genuinely engages in independent thought.
He calls the mind your most valuable asset.
Yes, the most valuable asset you possess. The only thing the Creator gave you complete, unfettered control over. Yet, he lamented. Most people carelessly allow others to kick it around like a football, letting outside opinions and pressures dictate their thoughts.
How should we scrutinize information we receive?
He advises studying laudatory or praising remarks just as closely as you study critical ones. Why? Because if someone praises you excessively, they might have an underlying self-serving motive.
Be wary of flattery.
Exactly. He aptly cites the Chinese proverb, "A man fools me once, shame on the man. Fool me twice, shame on me." He even reveals his own early troubles stemmed from trusting people too readily, allowing them to exploit his name and reputation to flim-flam others. So be cautious, he warns, of people who agree with you too much or too easily. They might be setting you up for exploitation.
Interesting twist on the irritating friend.
Yes. He suggests the person who consistently irritates you by pointing out your faults, the one who forces you to re-examine yourself, may be the most important friend you ever had because they challenge you to grow.
And always ask.
Always ask, how do you know? What is your source of information? Demand evidence. Don't just accept assertions. He even applies this rigor to the question of God's existence, offering evidence not through convoluted means, but through the observable, consistent orderliness of the universe.
What about hunches versus logic?
Pay respect to your hunches, he advises. They might be signals from infinite intelligence trying to break through your conscious filters. But, and this is key, always combine these hunches with rigorous logic. Don't just run off on a feeling. Evaluate your plans based on probability, workability, and practical considerations. He described how he would meticulously analyze a student's million-dollar aim, not just accepting the grand vision, but carefully scrutinizing the feasibility of the underlying plan.
When evaluating statements from others, what's the first thing to look for?
First and foremost, ascertain the motive behind the statement. Hill asserts confidently, once you find out what a man's motive is, it's impossible for him to fool you. Also, scrutinize statements coming from those known to have strong biases or overly enthusiastic imaginations. And remember his yardstick. Don't judge a person solely by their appearance, speech, religion, or politics, but judge them by how much I'm influencing people toward good or evil.
And always apply caution and use your own judgment in the end.
Yes, always use your own judgment in the final analysis. Even if that means recognizing you need broader experience or a different perspective, and seeking that out before making a final call. He humorously points out that a successful business needs not just master salesmen who might spend all the money, but also those cautious, wet blanket men like controllers to diligently control the finances. It highlights the necessity of balanced perspectives and roles for accurate outcomes.
He warns against disclosing your desired answers when seeking facts.
Yes, this is crucial. If you hint at the answer you expect or hope for, most people, being inherently a bit lazy or wanting to please, will simply give you the answer they know you want. This feels good momentarily, but leads you to fall down on it later when reality doesn't match your biased information. Instead, he recommends using impartial sources, like commercial credit companies back then, for unbiased reports when possible.
And employ a scientific process.
Right. Science, he defines simply, is the methodical organization and classification of facts. Seek out scientific sources or methods for testing your ideas whenever feasible, as true scientists, by their professional ethics, generally have no vested interest in misrepresenting facts.
And always strive to balance head and heart.
Yes. Emotions, he repeats, are not always reliable. Always give your head, your rational mind, a chance to weigh in and pass judgment, because the head is often more dependable for objective analysis than the heart. The ideal approach, he believed, balances both, giving each an equal say in the final decision.
He also talks about inherited thinking habits or social heredity.
Yes, he explains our thinking habits result from both social and physical heredity. Physical heredity, things like your body stature, basic physical traits, is relatively static, fixed. However, social heredity, which encompasses all the influences you encounter after birth, everything you hear, see, are taught, read, has the greatest impact on your character and thinking, and crucially, it is entirely controllable.
He uses that powerful contrast again.
Yes, the man paralyzed by polio running a humble peanut stand near the White House, compared with Franklin D. Roosevelt, who suffered the same physical affliction but successfully led the most powerful nation in the world. It dramatically showcases the power of consciously controlling your social heredity, your inputs, to transform even a severe affliction into an asset or source of strength.
So what's the ultimate price of accurate thinking?
It requires learning to meticulously examine all your emotional feelings by submitting them to the rigorous lens of reason. Be cautious, he warns, about what you set your heart on, because once you achieve it through sheer emotional drive, you might discover it wasn't what you truly wanted after all.
And curb opinions not based on facts.
Exactly. You have no inherent right, or rather intellectual responsibility demands, that you hold or express an opinion not fundamentally based on facts or what you sincerely believe to be facts after investigation. Don't be unduly influenced by people simply because you like them or because they're related to you. Maintain your intellectual independence.
This all comes back to self-discipline and thinking.
It does. Consciously refrain from saying or doing things impulsively just because you want to. Plan properly. Carefully study the potential effects of your words and decisions on both yourself and others before you act. And he offers a critical ethical guideline. Don't do anything that benefits you but harms others, because you will inevitably pay the price later under that immutable law of reciprocity. When seeking information, he reiterates, consistently ask others for facts, not just their opinions. Give me the facts, declares the accurate thinker, and I'll put them together in my own way. #tag cooperation, harmonious collective effort.
All right, let's delve into cooperation. This principle really underscores the immense power you get from harmonious collective effort.
Absolutely. Hill poses a really fundamental question. What human organization, whether it's a home, a school, a government, an industry, can possibly succeed in the long run without its members working harmoniously together toward a common shared goal?
It seems impossible.
Right. He explains that genuine cooperation fosters a unique and vital aspect of the human spirit, a sense of oneness, of fellowship. And true cooperation, by its very nature, simply has no room for selfishness.
He distinguishes between two kinds of cooperation.
Yes. First, there's cooperation based on force or coercion. Think dictatorships or overly authoritarian structures. Second, and far more powerful and sustainable, is cooperation based on voluntary action, which is always driven by a compelling motive or shared benefit.
And willing cooperation is essential for personal power.
Indispensable. He sees willing cooperation as an integral part of the mastermind principle. Together, they are the medium through which great personal power can be achieved. He states quite definitively that no one has ever acquired such power without the synergistic aid of these two principles working hand in hand.
Where is cooperation most indispensable?
Hill highlights 4 major relationships. 1 in the home, 2 in one's job or profession, 3 in social relationships, and 4 in actively supporting government and the principles of free enterprise. If every citizen genuinely cooperated in these 4 crucial areas, he argues, society would be vastly improved.
So cooperation plus mastermind equals immense power.
That's the formula. Cooperation plus the harmony and shared motive inherent in the mastermind principle equals immense power.
He brings up the FDR administration example again here.
Yes, because it illustrates this so well on a grand scale. The massive economic depression provided an overwhelming unifying motive for harmony, that desperate collective desire for recovery. Everyone, regardless of their political beliefs, rallied behind the president, driven fundamentally by the motive of self-survival.
A huge mastermind in action.
A grand illustration of power achieved through cooperation and mastermind, though, as Hill notes somewhat sadly, that unity regrettably disintegrated once the immediate emergency started to soften.
He also shares that powerful story about the Arthur Nash Clothing Company.
Yes, another fantastic real-world example. The company was facing imminent bankruptcy. Mr. Nash bravely gathered all his employees, confessed the company's dire state, and even admitted his own enthusiasm had completely waned.
That took guts.
Incredible guts. He then proposed a radical plan based entirely on the Golden Rule. He offered to use his own personal funds to guarantee their payroll and simply asked his employees to reciprocate with their best efforts and a genuine spirit of cooperation.
What happened?
The transformation was truly astounding. The employees were deeply touched by his sincerity and vulnerability. In turn, they found the spirit of real cooperation. The company didn't just survive, it thrived, becoming the most prosperous mail-order clothing business of its era. The profound change, Hill emphasizes, wasn't driven by fear. It was driven by a fundamental shift in mental attitude sparked by Nash's courageous application of the Golden Rule.
That story really highlights that motive is key.
Absolutely. No one acts without a clear motive, Hill states repeatedly, except perhaps the insane. He then outlines 4 key motives you can use to build cooperation, drawing directly from Andrew Carnegie's highly successful methods with his own teams.
Okay, What were Carnegie's methods?
First, provide the opportunity for increased compensation or promotion. Carnegie, for instance, famously paid his right-hand man, Charlie Schwab, a $75,000 salary plus a staggering $1 million bonus in some years. Not because he was legally obligated to, but because he knew Schwab was incredibly valuable and would ultimately make more money with him than against him. He kept valuable people by making it worth their while.
Smart. Second motive.
Second is recognition. Carnegie deeply understood the power of recognizing people publicly and privately for their personal initiative, their pleasing personality, or their outstanding work. He cultivated a great big family atmosphere by sending thoughtful personal cards and gifts for birthdays, not just to employees, but to their spouses and even their children. He built connection.
That's going the extra mile.
Huh? Third, Carnegie always had men in training for his own job. This sounds counterintuitive, but it was brilliant. It effectively prevented disloyalty or complacency because ambitious men were always striving for that next logical step up. He strategically hung out Plum's opportunities just ahead of their current reach, causing them to grow stronger, develop new capacities just to reach for them. He considered this far superior to using fear as a motivator.
Interesting strategy. And fourth,
Carnegie never made decisions for his executives. Instead, he actively encouraged them to make their own decisions and then take full responsibility for the outcomes, good or bad. Hill recounts a compelling example of Mr. Curtis, the owner of the Saturday Evening Post, deliberately pushing his son-in-law to make a very difficult, high-stakes paper-buying decision entirely on his own. This process demonstrated the immense power of decision that blossoms only when people are truly empowered and held accountable.
So by applying these principles of cooperation and motivation, Hill promises we can achieve a controlled destiny.
Yes, that's the ultimate promise. A life that you deliberately shape for yourself, rather than just reacting to circumstances. And in this self-designed destiny, he assures you, you will find happiness, profound pleasure, deep contentment, unwavering security, and the genuine friendship and goodwill of those around you. Why? Because you will have actively created the conditions and relationships that naturally lead to those desired ends.
Okay, let's explore principle #13, creative vision, which Hill also calls creative imagination. He has a beautiful definition for this.
He does. He calls the imagination the workshop wherein is fashioned the purpose of the brain and the ideals of the soul. It's where ideas are born and shaped.
And he distinguishes between two kinds of imagination.
Yes, two fundamental types. First, there's synthetic imagination. This is the more common type. Its mechanism involves combining recognized old ideas, established concepts, existing plans, or known facts into entirely new combinations.
So rearranging existing pieces.
Exactly. Hill notes that truly, new things under the sun are few and far between. Most innovations are actually clever recombinations of existing elements. But he stresses these ideas, born from synthetic imagination, must be repeated in the conscious mind and powerfully supported by emotional feeling, enthusiasm, faith, to actually translate into action. Ideas alone aren't enough.
He gives some classic examples, right? Edison's light bulb.
Perfect example of synthetic imagination. Edison didn't invent brand new elements. He simply combined the old idea of applying electricity to a wire with the known charcoal principle, the understanding that things don't burn without oxygen. So after an incredible 10,000 failed experiments, 10,000, his subconscious mind, during a brief catnap, provided the ingenious solution. Place the heated filament wire inside a vacuum-sealed glass bulb. When he finally found the right filament material and put it in the vacuum, the light burned for 8.5 hours. It was a new combination of known principles.
And Henry Ford's automobile.
Similar principle. Ford brilliantly combined the existing horse-drawn buggy with the concept of the steam-propelled threshing machine he'd seen. He observed a steam engine pulling a thresher across a field and vividly envisioned the horseless buggy as a practical reality, again combining existing concepts in a new way. Even Hill himself modestly admits his own philosophy primarily utilized synthetic imagination, reassembling existing profound ideas. His one new principle, the law of cosmic habit force, he says, is essentially his deeper interpretation and clarification of Emerson's law of compensation, just presented in more accessible terms.
Okay, so that's synthetic imagination. What's the second type?
The second type is creative imagination. This, Hill states, involves a direct connection, a direct pipeline to infinite intelligence. It taps into something beyond existing knowledge.
Wow. Examples.
His prime example is Madame Curie's groundbreaking discovery of radium. She possessed an unshakable, definite purpose, an unwavering conviction that radium must exist, even though no one had ever seen it. She worked meticulously using mathematical principles, and, crucially, she consciously conditioned her mind to tune into infinite intelligence, which, Hill believed, then supernaturally directed her to the elusive source within tons of pitch-blende ore. This task, finding those few radioactive atoms, was far harder than finding a needle in a haystack. And this, Hill states, is the exact process required for attracting true riches into your life. Purpose, planning, and tuning into that higher intelligence.
Other examples of creative imagination.
He mentions radar, radio, the Wright brothers' flying machine who persevered despite zero public encouragement and intensely skeptical newspapermen, Marconi's invention of the wireless, and Edison's talking machine, the phonograph, which remarkably was conceived almost instantaneously and actually worked perfectly the very first time he built it.
Incredible. So creative imagination has no limits.
According to Hill, the person who can reliably tune into infinite intelligence through their creative imagination can genuinely discover the answer to anything that has an answer. The potential is limitless.
He revisits the law of compensation here, too.
Yes, connecting it beautifully. He suggests that Edison's 10,000 failures with the light bulb were ultimately paid off, compensated for, by the talking machine working flawlessly the very first time. The law, he asserts, is inherently generous and fair and just. Where you seem to be cheated or experience loss in one area of life, it is proportionally compensated for elsewhere, often in unexpected ways.
And it works both ways, penalties too.
Absolutely. If you repeatedly run a red light, he uses as an analogy, you won't just get caught for one infraction, you'll eventually face consequences for multiple counts. Nature, he observes poetically, operates with a tremendous cop and a tremendous recording machine that meticulously tracks all our good deeds and qualities and all our bad ones. Nothing goes unnoticed in the universal balance sheet.
Hill connects these principles directly to the American way of life and its leadership.
He does. He attributes America's enduring greatness at its best to leaders who instinctively applied his 17 principles, often without even consciously knowing the philosophy itself. He particularly emphasizes 6 principles as foundational to that success: definiteness of purpose, going the extra mile, the mastermind principle, creative vision, applied faith, and personal initiative.
He points to the signers of the Declaration of Independence.
Yes, he encourages us to measure the 56 signers by these very principles. They certainly did not expect something for nothing. They regulated their hours and efforts by results achieved, not just time spent. And they assumed full, terrifying responsibility for their actions, pledging their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. They exemplified these principles under extreme pressure.
The transformative impact of creative vision throughout history is undeniable.
Absolutely. Think about it. The automobile, born from Ford's vision, fundamentally reshaped living, transportation, and business across the entire globe. Airplanes, thanks to the Wright brothers' persistent vision, effectively shrank the world, hopefully fostering greater understanding and brotherhood among nations. Radio and television brought free news and entertainment into homes, transcending social and economic strata. Hill even jokes that if radio had existed in his youth, he might have become a radio operator instead of a temporary Jesse James figure during a rough patch.
And the Steel Age.
Andrew Carnegie's vision ushered in the Great Steel Age, completely revolutionizing industry and profoundly uplifting the lives and fortunes of countless associate workers. And of course, Carnegie's vision also served as the direct inspiration for Hill's entire comprehensive philosophy of achievement.
This all powerfully underscores the profound power of alliance, working together.
Immensely so. Hill states unequivocally that nothing is truly impossible for 2 or more people working together in perfect harmony under the mastermind principle, especially when that alliance is fueled by creative vision. He insists he could never have created his comprehensive philosophy without the unwavering inspiration and confidence he constantly received from his mastermind alliance with Carnegie. He admits he often battled against what seemed like logic and reason, the powerful temptation to quit his unpaid research and secure a steady, safe bookkeeping job. But his own creative vision, relentlessly nurtured by that powerful alliance, kept him moving forward against all odds. #, health consciousness and budgeting, applications of principles.
Okay, let's transition into some very practical applications of these principles. Hill talks extensively about health consciousness and budgeting.
Yes, he shows how these everyday concerns are places where we can actively integrate many of the principles we've already explored, especially things like positive mental attitude and self-discipline. He advises placing mental health first, actually putting health consciousness right at the head of your priority list. Thinking, acting, and fundamentally being in terms of health is paramount for him.
He couldn't afford to be sick.
That's how he put it. He said he simply couldn't afford ailments. They consumed too much valuable time and, crucially, hurt his positive mental attitude. And he firmly believed that you can control most common ailments through the deliberate power of your mind and your habits.
So controlling stressors is key.
Absolutely. Constantly griping about family issues or occupational stress, he warns, directly harms your digestion and overall well-being. If circumstances lead to persistent complaint, he advises it's generally better to actively change those circumstances rather than just enduring them miserably.
And friction in relationships.
Friction and hatred in relationships, he insists, invariably lead to poor health, profound unhappiness, and a complete lack of peace of mind. He strongly advises getting rid of all hatred, resentment, and grudges from your mental landscape. They're toxic.
He provides very practical physical health actions to build into habits.
Yes, concrete steps. First, eat with peace of mind. Absolutely no worries or arguments allowed during mealtime. Why? Because your thoughts while eating directly affect your digestion and even the chemistry of your bloodstream. Mealtime, he believed, should be treated almost like a form of worship, filled only with pleasant, positive thoughts. Second, always eat in moderation. Most people, he observed, habitually overeat, placing an unnecessary and damaging burden on their internal organs.
Third, a balanced diet.
Yeah, right. Plenty of fruits, vegetables, abundant water, and what he called live food, basically fresh, unprocessed foods. Fourth, eat slowly. This prevents improper mastication and allows digestion to begin properly. He urged people to consciously relax and truly enjoy their meals, maybe discussing positive things at the table, even offering sincere compliments to their dining companions like their mate.
Fifth, avoid snacking between meals.
Yes, especially on detrimental things like sugary candy bars or soft drinks. If you need something, he suggested opting for healthier choices like lettuce or fruit. Sixth, practice temperance in controlling liquor and cigarettes. Liquor in excess, he stated firmly, is taboo at all times. Keep moderation as your guide.
He shared his own approach to smoking.
Yes, he said he quit smoking cigars when he felt the cigars started smoking him, meaning when the habit started controlling him. He wanted to be in complete possession of himself at all times. He also consistently avoided drinking alcohol if he needed to be mentally sharp, like before giving an important speech.
Seventh, relaxation and play.
Essential. Consciously balance work with adequate play and relaxation. It doesn't necessarily mean equal hours, but play is absolutely vital for sound health and mental rejuvenation. Hill, for example, found he could balance intense periods of writing by taking short breaks, maybe just 5 or 10 minutes, to play the piano. It allowed him to fully decompress and re-energize.
And eighth, get enough sleep.
Aim for about 8 hours of peaceful sleep. And the key here is to actively eliminate worry before bed. Don't toss and turn. Consciously decide to just sleep.
Speaking of worry, he hammers on eliminating worry.
He really does. His advice: train yourself not to worry over things you simply cannot remedy or control. It's bad enough, he says, to worry over things you can remedy, and even then, only worry for the precise duration it takes to figure out the solution and take action.
What was his personal approach?
He claimed he didn't worry over his own problems, let alone take on the problems of others. He was sensitive to issues, yes, but he refused to absorb them emotionally. Many people, he observed, habitually take on the burdens of their family, friends, neighbors, even the entire nation. Worry, he concluded dramatically, was made for somebody else.
So don't go looking for trouble.
Exactly. If you actively seek out faults, troubles, or things to worry about, you will unfailingly find them, even within the supposed sanctuary of your own home. What you focus on expands.
He also stresses the need to eliminate hopelessness.
Absolutely critical. A person without hope, he states bluntly, is fundamentally lost. Sound health inspires hope, and reciprocally, hope inspires sound health. They feed each other. Hope, he defines simply, is directed towards a yet-to-be-obtained objective.
He cautions against impatience.
Yes, don't worry about not achieving your goals fast enough, and certainly don't be influenced by impatience to acquire money through the wrong way, cutting corners ethically. He suggests cultivating hope through a specific practice, a daily prayer of gratitude, but not asking for more blessings. Instead, expressing profound thanks for the blessings you already possess, like the fundamental freedom you enjoy as an American citizen, he used as an example. He called this the finest prayer.
And Hill felt he achieved this himself.
He expressed immense gratitude. He felt he had everything he truly desired because he consistently lived his own philosophy and was grateful for the opportunity to minister to others through his work. He felt he was truly the master of his own fate because he lived by principles designed to help himself and others without harming anyone.
Okay, let's talk budgeting time and money. Key for financial security.
Two absolute essentials, according to Hill. If you want financial security,
Okay.
you must budget both your time and your money according to a definite, thought-out plan.
He revisits the time budget.
Yes, that 24-hour breakdown. 8 hours for sleep, nature's non-negotiable demand. 8 hours for work, where you have some control over efficiency. And the remaining 8 hours are your personal, free time, entirely yours to utilize as you wish. And those last 8 hours, he stresses, represent your greatest opportunity for personal advancement, learning, skill development, or deep relaxation and rejuvenation. Use them wisely.
And the money budget. What are the components?
First, life insurance. He calls this an absolute must, especially if you have dependents relying on you. Second, investment. Set aside a definite amount regularly, even if it's small initially, like just $1 a week. The consistent habit of being resourceful and frugal is far more important than the starting amount, and put that investment money where it's hard for you to get at it easily. He suggested things like investment trusts advised by a trusted banker back then, prevent impulse spending.
Okay. Insurance, investment,
Yeah.
What else?
The remaining funds are for your current emergency fund and regular spending. Having a good nest egg, a safety cushion, he says, consistently provides courage, reduces stress, and fosters peace of mind. Hill himself shared a personal habit. He always kept a $20 bill wrapped separately in his wallet, purely as emergency money he wouldn't touch otherwise. This contributed to him having no money worries and gave him the fortitude to speak my piece, be myself, and demand that people keep off of my toes. Financial independence breeds personal confidence.
He extends this budgeting idea to budgeting time for can-do thinking.
Yes, a fascinating application. He prompts this again. How much of your mental time do you spend actively thinking about what you desire versus dwelling on what you don't desire, like fear, ill health, frustration, past failures? Without a deliberate system, a conscious budget for your thoughts, he warns, most of your mental time will inadvertently be spent negatively.
And budgeting time for gratitude.
He practiced this intensely. Hill said he set aside 3 hours daily for meditation and silent prayer, primarily focused on gratitude for the profound opportunity to minister to others through his work. Again, repeating that the finest prayer is expressing thanks for what you already have.
Wow, 3 hours daily, that's dedication. What about relationships?
Yes, budgeting time for relationships is crucial. Consciously allocate specific time for cultivating both your business and personal relationships. Goodwill needs nurturing. The old adage, out of sight, out of mind, applies strongly to friends and contacts. You must actively maintain contact, he insisted.
And finally, budgeting time for improvement.
Critically important, budget specific time for improvement and advancement. Use your spare time consciously for mind improvement, reading, learning new skills, engaging in professional or civic associations. Don't just let spare time evaporate. These budgeting practices, he concludes, perfectly embody and require the principles of having a definite plan and employing accurate thinking in managing your most valuable resources, your time, your money, and your thoughts. And now we arrive at the 17th and final principle in this series, the law of cosmic habit force. Hill describes this one with a fascinating paradox. He calls it both the most difficult and the simplest principle.
Difficult and simple, how so?
It's difficult because its implications are so vast, but simple because it's so obvious, operating all around us, yet often completely overlooked. He defines cosmic habit force as the fundamental universal law through which the balance and orderliness of the entire cosmos are maintained, through the power of established habits. Think of the predictable sweep of galaxies, the reliable ebb and flow of tides, the unwavering rhythm of the seasons, all driven by this force.
He connects us to Emerson.
Yes, he credits Emerson's essay on the law of compensation as a major influence, which he felt he clarified and made more practical with his concept of cosmic habit force. But here's the truly revolutionary insight Hill adds regarding man's uniqueness.
What's unique about us in relation to this law?
Hill states that every other living thing on Earth operates primarily by instinct, essentially having a fixed destiny dictated by nature's habits. But man is unique. We are not bound by instinct in the same way. We are guided by our boundless imagination and our innate willpower. Humans possess the incredible ability to project our will towards any chosen objective, to consciously form any habits we need to achieve that objective, and crucially, to change those habits at will if they no longer serve us. This law, Hill explains, is the precise mechanism by which you can consciously set and even reprogram your mind's dominant patterns.
That's incredibly empowering. He makes a bold claim about success versus failure, too.
A very provocative one. Most people work harder at failing in life than I work at succeeding. A lot harder.
Wow. Harder at failing.
That's what he believed. He insists that success becomes inherently easier once you learn and consistently apply these fundamental rules, these principles. And you simply cannot achieve lasting success, he argues, unless you deeply understand and consciously utilize this law of cosmic habit force. The path to success, he says, is clear. You deliberately begin building the specific habits that lead directly to your desired destination, and cosmic habit force makes those habits increasingly automatic.
He has a strategy for breaking tough habits.
A very counterintuitive one. Don't start with the easy habits you want to break. Instead, he advises take the biggest guy first. Tackle your most ingrained, challenging, negative habit head-on.
Really? Go for the hardest one first.
Yes. He recounts his own compelling story of quitting smoking. He intentionally left a pack of cigarettes right there on his dresser for 40 days, refusing to touch them, as a powerful act of proving his absolute mastery, his willpower over the habit. This, he says, is the ultimate test of your capacity to build desired habits by first successfully conquering your most formidable undesired ones. It builds immense self-confidence.
Okay, how does this apply to health consciousness?
You actively establish positive health habits, making them automatic through cosmic habit force. Hill meticulously maintained his body, he said, to ensure he had plenty of power whenever he needed to engage his full energy when he puts his foot on the gas, as he put it.
And thinking is the start.
Thinking is always the starting point. A positive mind naturally leads to health consciousness, which he defines as a continuous awareness of the desired condition of health. It's a predominating tendency to think about health, vitality, and well-being, not constantly dwelling on disease or ailments.
He warns against ailment consciousness.
Strongly. He observes how most people, unfortunately, seem to love talking about their ailments in detail. He shares that vivid story again about his friend describing an operation so graphically it made Hill feel physical pain in his own back just listening. Most people, he reminds us, don't like to hear you talk about your ailments. The best way to get rid of them, he insists, is to form a powerful health consciousness. Think in terms of health, talk in terms of health, look in the glass a dozen times a day and say, "You healthy man."
And cosmic habit force can work against you here too.
Absolutely. He issues a stern warning that cosmic habit force will diligently carry out an ill health consciousness, what we might call hypochondria, to the point of actually producing genuine physical symptoms that match the negative expectation. Your body follows your dominant thoughts.
What about thought habits while eating?
Critically important, he believed. Your mental attitude while eating, and for roughly 2 to 3 hours afterward, directly determines if the food you consume nourishes you properly or potentially harms you. Your thoughts literally become part of your bloodstream's energy.
So eating should be a religious ceremony.
That's his term. Don't eat when you're emotionally disturbed or overly tired. Eating should be treated as a religious exercise, a religious ceremony, consciously surrounded only by positive, grateful, pleasant thoughts. He described how he would worship his morning orange juice, drinking it slowly and gratefully. Bless your food, he advised.
And thought habits about work.
Equally crucial. Your positive mental attitude acts as a vital ally, a silent repairman during your work hours. Work, too, he suggests, should ideally be approached as a religious ceremony, infused with positive thoughts about service, contribution, and achievement.
He felt few people achieve this.
He lamented that a great tragedy of modern civilization is how few people are genuinely engaged in what he called a labor of love work they truly feel passionate about and aligned with. He expressed sincere hope that his life's work would help more people find this profound sense of fulfillment. He envisioned a grand world that would materialize if people consistently thought in terms of good health, abundance, fellowship, and brotherhood, instead of perpetually focusing on anger, conflict, lack, and war.
He even felt his home vibrations reflected this.
Yes, he shared how his own home was deliberately, constantly charged with positive vibrations, an environment where nothing inharmonious is permitted. He even humorously noted that his little Pomeranian dogs seemed to instinctively respond to this atmosphere, barking protectively at visitors who weren't in harmony, while affectionately kissing the hands of those who were. A beautiful, if anecdotal, illustration of the tangible impact of consistent mental habits.
This all boils down to mind predominance.
Exactly. Make your mind predominantly positive all the time. infinite intelligence, he warns again, simply will not act on your behalf, won't provide guidance or opportunities if you are immersed in a state of anger, fear, or negativity, no matter how justified you feel those emotions might be. You simply cannot afford, he insists, to entertain negative actions, negative expressions, or negative relationships. Instead, deliberately, consciously build positive habits of thought and action, and cosmic habit force will work to make them your predominant, automatic way of being.
He lists specific negatives to avoid letting become fixations.
Yes, because they are just too expensive, energetically, and ultimately destructive. Things like poverty consciousness, imaginary illness, laziness, which remember he defines as simply a person who hasn't yet found their labor of love, envy, greed, anger, hatred, jealousy, dishonesty, drifting aimlessly without purpose, chronic irritability, vanity, arrogance, cynicism, sadism, and the destructive will to injure others. Avoid fixating on these.
And conversely, the positive thought habits to cultivate as fixations.
Absolutely. At the very top of this list, always, is definiteness of major purpose. Make it your relentless fixation. Eat it, sleep it, and drink it, as he dramatically puts it. Every single day, engage in some deliberate action, however small, that moves you directly towards it. Other critical positive habits to cultivate as fixations include unwavering faith, proactive personal initiative, infectious enthusiasm, a consistent willingness to go the extra mile, a vibrant imagination, all the traits of a pleasing personality we discussed, rigorous, accurate thinking, and essentially all the other positive achievement traits articulated throughout his philosophy. Make these your automatic defaults.
And if you want to change others.
His advice is direct. If you truly desire to reform people, don't start with other people, start with you. Reform yourself first. A positive mind, he assures us, will always master a negative mind, provided the positive person consistently exercises their right and discipline to remain positive.
He circles back to heredity one last time.
Yes, reinforcing that key distinction. Physical heredity, things like physical afflictions or inherent stature, is largely as is, something we generally don't control directly. However, social heredity, all those myriad influences you absorb after birth from your environment, education, relationships, media, has the greatest impact on your character, your thinking, and ultimately your destiny. And the crucial point is, social heredity is entirely controllable by you through conscious choice and self-discipline. He uses that powerful contrast again. The paralyzed man running a humble peanut stand versus FDR, same affliction, vastly different outcomes based on controlling their social heredity and mental attitude.
So the journey ahead is in our hands.
Completely. As Hill would say, by taking the step, by engaging with these ideas, you're already far ahead on this profound journey. Joy, deep fulfillment, and significant achievement lie directly before you as you embark on this path of conscious creation using these principles.
And there you have it. Wow. That was a monumental deep dive into Napoleon Hill's timeless philosophy, wasn't it?
It really was. We covered so much ground.
We really explored what it truly means to be rich and how it goes so far beyond just financial gain. We unpacked the transformative power of having a definite purpose.
The collaborative might of the mastermind principle.
The unwavering strength you get from applied faith. The almost magical returns of consistently going the extra mile.
Right, and those essential traits for developing a pleasing and effective personality.
Plus, the profound potential of maintaining a positive mental attitude, the absolute necessity of self-discipline, taking possession of your own mind.
And the rigorous clarity that comes from accurate thinking, the deep benefits of true cooperation, and that boundless innovation sparked by creative vision.
And finally, we saw how that overarching law of cosmic habit force really underpins all of these, making your chosen habits, whether they're positive or negative, such a powerful automatic force shaping your life.
It's really not just theory, is it? Hill presented this as a proven program for taking action.
Exactly. You've now gained deep insights into Hill's principles, many of which he rigorously proved through his own extraordinary life, and through studying the lives of the most successful individuals of his time, and arguably any time.
And the core message seems to be, you have the ultimate control over your own mind. That's your sovereign power.
Right. And by understanding, and more importantly, applying these principles consistently, you really can consciously sculpt your own destiny.
So, perhaps a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
Yeah.
Consider this. If your mind automatically attracts the counterpart of the thoughts you predominantly feed it, and if Hill suggests most of us have probably been asking for everything we don't want simply through neglect, what specific positive orders will you consciously give your subconscious mind tonight? And maybe every night moving forward? How will you begin actively programming your mind to attract the true holistic richness you genuinely desire?
That's a powerful question to end on. How will you actively program your mind? The adventure, as Napoleon Hill himself would undoubtedly say, is truly yours to live.